Good morning to all. We wish to acknowledge Dr. Indira Rampersad, NEHIST Chairman, members of the NEHIST Board of Governors, Dr. Fazal Ali, President of NEHIST, Mr. Johnny Musabayano, Director of the International Labour Organization, Caribbean Office, Ms. Lavan Superville, Vice President, Science and Technology Acting of NEHIST, Ms. Sharon Parmanon, Senior Economist, NEHIST, Ms. Ilka Webster, Skills and Lifelong Specialist, also of the ILO, NEHIST and ILO management and staff, education leaders, industry representatives, and valued stakeholders. Good morning again. My name is Candice Hector, and I have the pleasure of guiding today's Shaping the Future webinar. As you would be aware, this is a partnered initiative between NEHIST and the ILO. And we're really pleased to have you join us at this 5-part webinar series aimed at facilitating conversation and collaboration on the findings of the assessment of 21st century skills across emerging sectors. And many of you all would have been a part of that national launch recently. So commencing today, we are focusing on the agro-processing sector, and I wish to welcome NEHIS's chairman, Dr. Indira Rampersad, virtually center stage to deliver greetings. Dr. Rampersad.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
All protocols observed in the interest of time. On behalf of the Board of Governors, management, and staff of NEHIST, it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar. Following the successful completion and national launch of the Assessment of 21st Century Skills across emerging sectors reports, we are now entering an equally important phase of this initiative. While the study has provided us with valuable evidence on the skills required across emerging sectors, these stakeholders' engagement sessions present an opportunity to validate the findings, gain additional perspectives from industry and education leaders, and strengthen the recommendations that will guide future action. NEHIST is proud to continue this important partnership with the International Labour Organization, ILO, as we bring together stakeholders from across government, industry, academia, and civil society to explore the findings and discuss their implications for Trinidad and Tobago's workforce. The study confirms what many of us have observed: technological advancement, changing labor market demands, and evolving industries require a workforce equipped not only with technical expertise, but also with critical thinking, adaptability, collaboration, digital literacy, and problem-solving skills. These competencies will be fundamental to our nation's competitiveness and sustainable development. For NEHIST, this work directly supports our mandate to advance science, technology, research, and innovation through evidence-based planning. The assessment provides a valuable benchmark for understanding where opportunities exist, but today's discussions will allow us to go a step further by incorporating the practical experiences and perspectives of those who are shaping our education system, employing our workforce, and developing national policy. As we continue these engagements, our discussions remain focused on 3 key priorities. 1, strengthening data-driven alignment between education, training, and workforce needs. 2, enhancing competitiveness within emerging sectors by identifying the skills that will be most critical for future growth. And 3, informing collaborative policy and program development through meaningful stakeholder engagement. What gives me great confidence is that this conversation has not ended with the publication of the reports. Instead, it has evolved into an ongoing national dialogue. I extend sincere appreciation to the technical teams of NEHIST and the International Labour Organization for their dedication in delivering this important body of work and in facilitating these continued engagements. Finally, I thank each of you for joining us today. Your expertise, experiences, and recommendations will provide valuable insights that help us build upon the study's findings and ensure that they remain relevant, practical, and responsive to the needs of our nation. Together, we have an opportunity to transform research into action and position Trinidad and Tobago to meet the demands of the future workforce. Thank you, and I wish you a productive and insightful session.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rampasad, for setting the tone for this morning's webinar. So to the audience, just a few quick housekeeping points. Please use the chat for your questions. Questions will be addressed during our moderated Q&A segment, and we encourage you to participate through the end of today's event. At this point, we invite you to briefly respond to a poll. It is going to be placed in the chat, and it will give us an idea of your area of work or industry, your area of expertise. So I invite you to respond to the brief poll. Once completed, please feel free to exit the poll. All right. So now let's get into the research and explore what the findings are telling us. We now invite Ms. Sharon Parmanon, Senior Economist at NEHIST, to lead today's presentation. Ms. Parmanon, over to you.
Thank you, Candace. Are you seeing my presentation?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. Our discussion today will focus on understanding the current workforce and skills landscape within Trinidad and Tobago's agro-processing sector, with particular focus on 21st century skills, STEM labor, and TVET. We will begin by briefly examining why agro-processing is important for economic diversification, food security, and export growth. We will then look at who participated in the study and what the current workforce profile looks like. Next, we will explore recruitment challenges, employer perception of graduates' readiness for the workplace, and the 21st century skills employers valued most. We will also examine future demand for STEM occupations and the technologies that are transforming the agro-processing industry. Finally, we will conclude with recommendations. These include recommendations from the employers and general recommendations based on the findings of the study. Why agro-processing matters? Agro-processing plays a strategic role in Trinidad and Tobago's economy. As highlighted on the slide, beyond creating value from agricultural products, the sector contributes to food security, import substitution, rural development, employment generation, and export opportunities. As countries increasingly seek to strengthen domestic production systems and reduce vulnerabilities in global supply chains, agro-processing presents a significant opportunity for growth. However, success will depend not only on producing more, but on producing smarter, safer, and at higher levels of value-added production. This will require a workforce that can adapt to technology change, respond to evolving market demands and climate-related issues, and drive innovation across the value chain. As production methods continue to evolve, employers will increasingly require workers who possess both technical and STEM capabilities, as well as essential 21st century skills such as digital literacy, critical thinking, problem solving, just to name a few. That is why findings of assessments such as these are particularly important. They help us understand where the workforce is today, where industry needs it to be, and provide evidence to inform strategies and actions that can close the gap. Before looking at the findings, I would briefly explain how the study was conducted. For the agro-processing sector, a sampling frame of 235 businesses was compiled using listings from the Central Statistical Office, NAMDEVCO, and the National Training Agency. From this frame, a sample of 71 businesses was selected and 26 employers responded to the study. The study was conducted between 2023 and 2025, and it used a mixed methods approach combining quantitative and qualitative data collected through the establishment survey. The study focused on skills demand, skills gaps and mismatches, vacancy and recruitment, STEM labor needs, TVET, and the effects of technological change on the industry. The methodology followed the establishment skills survey guidelines of the ILO, and the questionnaire design was guided mainly by the ILO core skills framework, which was used to capture data on workforce competencies essential for the future of work. It defines 19 core skills, which are grouped into four main categories: social and emotional skills, such as communication and teamwork; cognitive and metacognitive skills, such as problem solving and critical thinking; basic digital skills, such as the use of basic hardware and software; and basic skills for green jobs, such as environmental awareness. The ILO STEM and TVET curriculum guide was used to assess TVET competencies within the workforce. Stakeholder consultations were also undertaken, mainly to ensure the relevance and validity of the survey instrument. The findings provide valuable insights into the sector based on responses from 26 of the 71 companies sampled. While the overall response rate was 37% and responses to the TVET section was limited, the results provide an important evidence base for informing discussions on workforce planning and skills development. Let us now look at the profile of the participating establishments. It is useful to examine their characteristics, as these provide valuable context for understanding the results of the study. The findings indicate that the agro-processing sector was largely made up of relatively young and small enterprises. The results show that 70% of the participating establishments had been operating for less than 20 years, indicating that many businesses in the sector had been established within the past 2 decades. In addition, 69% of the establishments employ fewer than 10 workers, highlighting the predominance of micro enterprises within the industry. In terms of economic activity, food processing had the highest representation, accounting for 38% of the establishments, followed by fruit and vegetable processing, meat processing, beverage production, and oil extraction and refining. These characteristics are important when interpreting the findings. The predominance of small enterprises means that many firms operate with limited staff and financial resources, which can affect their ability to recruit workers, invest in technology, and provide training opportunities. At the same time, the relatively young nature of many of the businesses suggests potential for growth and innovation. However, these firms may require targeted support to expand their operations and build workforce capacity. Additionally, because the agro-processing sector includes a range of different activities, workforce needs would likely vary across subsectors, and skills development strategies should therefore be flexible enough to reflect the different production processes, technologies, and business models. Turning now to the workforce composition and STEM capacity. In terms of gender, almost all of the participating establishments, 96%, reported employing both men and women. However, male employment tended to be higher than female employment, with 20% of the establishments reporting employing 10 or more male workers compared to 8% that reported employing 10 or more female workers. In terms of occupational groups, men were more commonly represented in professional, technical, skilled agricultural, craft, and elementary occupations. Women, on the other hand, were more represented in management, clerical support, service and sales, and plant and machine operator. With respect to STEM, the findings also show that STEM qualifications are present within the sector. As we can see, a half of the participating establishments employed staff with STEM degrees, while 38% reported that they had managers with STEM qualifications. One important finding is that despite the presence of STEM qualified staff in many establishments, the number of reported STEM occupations remain relatively low. Agriculture-related roles were most commonly reported in the establishments. Overall, this suggests that while STEM capacity exists within the sector, there is an opportunity to further strengthen the use of STEM skills and expand STEM-related occupations within the agro-processing industry. Moving on, this slide provides an overview of vacancies and recruitment activity within the sector. Overall, vacancy levels reported by employers were relatively low. At the time of the survey, 23% of the establishments reported having a vacancy. Of these, 15% reported vacancies in non-STEM occupations, while 8% reported vacancies in STEM-related occupations. Despite the relatively low number of vacancies, recruitment activity was evident across the sector. More than half of the establishments reported filling at least one vacancy during the 12 months preceding the survey. The data also show that non-STEM vacancies were more common than STEM vacancies. Where STEM vacancies did occur, they were distributed across three main fields: food and agriculture, IT, and natural sciences. Overall, the low vacancy levels reflect the small size of many agro-processing establishments. However, the findings suggest that while vacancies was not to be as frequent, the sector still required a mix of technical and non-technical skills to support its operation and growth. Also, it is important to note that while vacancy levels were relatively low, employers still reported challenges in finding suitable candidates, which brings me to my next slide. This slide explores the recruitment difficulties faced by establishments in the sector. Overall, 67% of employers reported difficulty filling STEM professional roles. 50% experienced challenges recruiting workers in the natural sciences field, and food scientists was cited by 40% of employers as the most difficult STEM role to fill. When asked about the barriers to recruitment, employers most frequently highlighted attitude, motivation, and personality, followed by unwillingness to take certain jobs, insufficient qualifications, and insufficient work experience. In addition to recruitment challenges, 30% of the employers recommended regularizing the industry through clearer roles, contracts, benefits, and greater job security, suggesting that improvements to employment conditions could help attract and retain STEM talent. Overall, STEM recruitment challenges are influenced by both skill shortages and broader labor market factors. As such, addressing these challenges will require not only strengthening the supply of skills, but also increasing job attractiveness, employability skills, and employment conditions. To better understand the competencies agro-processing employers valued the most, employers were asked to assess the importance of the ILO core skills in their workforce. Employers placed a high value on all 19 core skills, with at least a half rating every skill as important. The top five skills, each rated important by 95% of the employers, were communication, collaboration and teamwork, self reflection and learning to learn, energy and water efficiency, and waste reduction. These results highlight the importance employers place on strong people skills, continuous learning, and sustainable work practices. Employers also highlighted the skills needed to respond to change. Internally, organizational priorities were driven primarily by people and profitability, with communication emerging as the most important response skill. Externally, competition, climate change, and technological change were identified as the main pressures affecting businesses. Employers highlighted IT skills and creativity and innovation as the most important capabilities for responding to future challenges and opportunities. Overall, the findings indicate that employers are seeking workers who can communicate effectively, adapt to change, embrace sustainable practices, and contribute to innovation. A particularly important finding relates to skills mismatches. While employers valued all core skills across nearly all skill areas, employers rated skill importance significantly higher than the proficiency levels they observed among existing employees, indicating significant skills gaps in the workforce. The largest gap was in self reflection and learning to learn, with a 73% point difference between importance and proficiency. Other major gaps were in conflict resolution and negotiation, communication, emotional intelligence, planning and organizing, and analytical and critical thinking. At the same time, employers identified collaboration and teamwork, along with problem solving and decision making, as the strongest existing capabilities among employees, with 48% rating these skills as high. The smallest gap was in basic digital skills, suggesting that current employee proficiency is more closely aligned with employer expectations in this area. While these gaps may not immediately disrupt operations, they can significantly constrain productivity, innovation, and technology adoption over time. Therefore, addressing these gaps will be critical for long-term competitiveness. Turning now to graduate readiness, the findings reveal both encouraging signs and areas for improvement. Most employers felt that recent graduates are at least somewhat prepared for work, with 80% reporting them as somewhat prepared. However, only 20% considered graduates to be well or very well prepared, suggesting there is room for improvement. Employers reported the greatest difficulties in sourcing emotional intelligence, which 63% of the respondents cited, followed by communication and learning to learn skills, each reported by 50% of the employers. On a positive note, graduates performed strongest in basic green job skills and basic digital skills, indicating that the incoming workforce is becoming more sustainability conscious, and technologically proficient. However, readiness remains weakest in areas such as communication, collaboration, negotiation, and self reflection. These findings highlight the continued importance of hands on workplace experience and the development of socio emotional skills alongside technical competencies. Turning now to STEM labor demand. Current demand was relatively modest, but employers anticipated significant changes in workforce requirements over the next 5 years as businesses increasingly focus on innovation, food safety, sustainability, and digitalization. At the time of the survey, the most in demand STEM occupation was food scientists, followed by web and digital interface designers, mechanical engineers, HSE officers, and software developers. Looking ahead, food scientists remain the top priority, with demand expected to increase substantially. Employers also anticipated a greater need for agricultural technicians, environmental scientists, database creators, and web and digital interface designers. These findings suggest that the future workforce needs will extend beyond production focused roles towards occupations that support innovation, environmental management, food security, and digital transformation. The research identified several emerging technologies that are expected to transform the agro-processing sector in the coming years. These include automation and robotics, the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, biotechnology, blockchain, and digital platforms. For local firms, these technologies offer a range of benefits, including greater efficiency and lower costs, improved quality and food safety, stronger sustainability outcomes, and increased consumer trust through better product traceability. However, successful adoption will depend on addressing key challenges. Smaller firms will require access to financing, digital and physical infrastructure, STEM skills training, partnerships with tertiary institutions, and supportive policies. Overall, the findings suggest that technology adoption can significantly improve the competitiveness and sustainability of the agro-processing sector, provided the right support systems are in place. Moving on to TVET. Although participation in the TVET section was limited, several consistent themes emerged. Employers highlighted concerns regarding insufficient practical hands-on training and limited exposure to real workplace environments. These findings suggest that while theoretical knowledge is important, there is a continuing need for learning experiences that better connect training with the workplace realities. Another key issue was the alignment of curricula with evolving industry and technological requirements. Respondents indicated that some programs might not be keeping up with changes in technology, industry practices, and workforce demands, which can affect graduate preparedness. The study also pointed to weakness in the development of cognitive and socio-emotional skills, including problem solving, critical thinking, and emotional intelligence. These competencies are becoming increasingly important in modern workplaces, where adaptability, communication, and effective decision making are highly valued. In addition, there is a limited access to industry specific programs and insufficient exposure to the tools, equipment, and processes commonly used within the sector. Strengthening these areas may help graduates transition more effectively into employment. Skills such as collaboration, empathy, and service orientation were more readily evident among TVET graduates. These attributes represent important strengths that can support successful workplace integration and performance. Overall, the findings suggest that expanding training opportunities can help TVET institutions better address skills shortages and increase workforce competitiveness. Increased opportunities for practical training and workplace exposure would better prepare graduates to meet the needs of employers. The findings also point to opportunities for expanding industry relevant TVET programs, particularly in areas aligned with STEM occupations and emerging technologies. Strengthening programs in these fields can support sector growth, workforce development, and the evolving demands of the economy. In summary, while the findings highlight several areas for improvement, they also demonstrate the significant potential of TVET to support workforce development by strengthening industry linkages, expanding practical training opportunities, and ensuring programs remain aligned with evolving labor market needs. TVET can play an increasingly important role in addressing skill shortages and preparing graduates for the jobs of the future. Okay, so now on to the recommendations. Employers offered several recommendations for strengthening workforce development. For tertiary institutions, the top recommendation cited by 63% of the employers was to better align programs with industry needs. This was followed by expanding internship and OJT opportunities, increasing practical training, and strengthening collaboration with industry. For government, employers emphasize the need for greater incentives for STEM businesses, more apprenticeship opportunities, increased STEM career awareness, regularizing jobs in the industry, and training that is aligned with labor market needs. Employers also highlighted actions for the private sector. These include offering more internships, expanding employee training opportunities, and building stronger partnerships between industry, educational institutions, and other stakeholders. The message from employers is clear. Closer collaboration among government, industry, and tertiary institutions is essential to ensure graduates have the skills and experience needed for the future workforce. The other recommendations based on the findings, four broad areas of action emerged. The first, strengthening education industry alignment through curriculum co-design, stronger industry partnerships, STEM promotion, and ensuring that training programs reflect current and emerging workforce needs. Second, investing in workforce development by expanding opportunities for upskilling and reskilling, internships, apprenticeships, and workplace based learning to better prepare both new entrants and existing workers. Third, supporting technology adoption while ensuring that workers have the skills and competencies needed to effectively use emerging technologies such as automation, artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and digital platforms. And fourth, strengthening labor market intelligence, improving the attractiveness of careers in the agro-processing sector, and regularizing the industry to support sustainable growth and workforce development. The key being that responsive education and training systems developed in close partnerships with industry are essential for building a skilled workforce capable of supporting innovation, productivity, and long term competitiveness of the agro processing sector. This brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. I will now hand you back to Ms. Hector.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Just making sure you all are able to hear me loud and clear.
Yes, we
All
are.
right.
Yeah, we
Thank
can.
you. All right. So some excellent highlights provided there. So we've heard what the research tells us. It's now your opportunity to also be heard. So to lead this portion of today's event, we now invite Ms. Ilka Webster, Skills and Lifelong Learning Specialist of the ILO, to moderate our Q&A session. So gentle reminder that you can ask your questions in the chat. Ilka is also going to be supported by the NEHIRST research team led by Ms. Lavan Superville, Vice President, Science and Technology Acting, Ms. Sharon Parmanan, Senior Economist, as well as Mr. Akeem Timothy, Economist 1. Over to you, Ilka.
Okay, thank you, Candice, and thank you, Sharon, for that very comprehensive presentation. We would like now to present some questions to you. Those are questions for reflection, so please feel free to respond to them in the chat box. They are organized according several areas. The first area would be about priority skills and occupations. So the question is, what 5 skills and occupations should be prioritized over the next 3 to 5 years? And how do you think these priorities can be regularly updated? We want to see these results of this research moving out of the shelf. The intention here is that you think about what was presented, you have access to the studies as well, but you may also have, based in your experiences, based on conversations you had with different actors from the sector, you can use this to respond to these questions too. So feel free. And also, there's a list of questions. I know it can be exhaustive. It's not our intention that you are going to respond and everybody's going to respond to all of them. Feel free to choose those that are most important for you. Your responses are very important to us.
All right, so Ilka, I'm seeing in the chat, food scientist.
Okay.
Yes. And there's also a question by Mr. Das. All right, so he's interested in learning about what products in the, let me see if we could open it just a little bit more.
I'll address that question, Candice.
You can address it, no
Yeah.
problem.
To address that question, this study doesn't rank specific products by commercial opportunity, but it pointing out to strong potential in like value-added products using local crops like cocoa, hot peppers, cassava, fruits, vegetables. So I guess I would highlight products like sauces and condiments, cocoa-based products like juices and beverages, packaged foods, like that could serve both the local and export markets, but the study didn't specifically identify commercial opportunities.
All right, so just to make sure all on the call are aware, Akeem is responding to Mr. Das, what products in the agro-processing sphere presents the most opportunity? Back to you, Ilko.
Yeah, I see here employability, soft skills seem to be a major challenge, professionalism, work ethic, critical thinking, problem solving, communications, and time managers. These are aligned with the results of the study. How do you think they can be regularly updated? One of the major challenges is that when we develop these studies, First of all, they take some time. Surveys can be very complex. So this study was developed between 2023 and 25. And the labor market is in constantly change. And these changes, they happen because of new technologies come, but also because the economic environment itself changes, or because there are climate change that can impact the sector as well, new regulations regarding sustainability. So how do you think this could be updated more frequently? What kind of mechanism we are missing there so that the sector actors could let um, education institutions know what is needed, what are the skills needed?
Mhm. Thanks, Ilko. I'm also seeing another question by Mr. Harper. This is directed towards Akeem, and he is interested in learning about the distribution of food and agriculture products globally. Akeem, are you able to take that question?
You want to be more specific, like this distribution globally, like
Mr. Harper, when you get the opportunity, please expand on your point in the chat. All right, so he's mentioning like selling and retail. Yeah.
kind of want to let him unmute for a second. So
I you
So,
want me to take it
yeah,
Sharon,
on?
okay,
can you
Sean
take
could
it?
take it.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think in terms of let me to break the negative outlook on the careers in this sector, I think a lot of it would have to be with awareness. And as some of the employers also said, we have to look at regularizing the industry and making the jobs more attractive, the job security, also with the emerging technologies and transforming the industry. There would also be new and emerging careers tied to these technologies. So it's really now identifying those careers and making it a public knowledge and making students aware of the benefits and what is required. And as the employers did say, we also have to make sure that the careers and to improve the quality of careers in the industry as well too.
Mhm. Thanks,
Okay.
Sharon. Hilko?
Yeah, I think we can move to the second question, which is about curriculum responsiveness and what specific curriculum program changes can be made to better respond to the identified skills gaps. And by when, I think this is more a question for educational institutions. So perhaps if you could indicate, based on your experience, um, what involves in how it takes a long time to change. How often do you look into what new skills are needed with the objective of making your project, your training course more respondent to the labor market needs? How often do you do this change and how long it takes?
All right, audience, remember this is your opportunity. So please utilize the chat to respond. Right, so Ilko, I'm seeing a comment by Mr. Ramlogan to expand the competency-based TVET pathways.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, very important. And right now, also the micro credentials, expansion of micro credentials, it can really help learners and also workers that need to be skilled, reskilled to acquire the competencies that are needed in the labor market. Can we move to the third question? It's about work-based learning, because one of the major recommendations that we find in this study from the employers is that the recommendations, no, the findings, the practical skills are not there. So the recommendation would be more implementation of work-based learning, which involves practice in a work environment. What do you think that employers and training providers can do to give more students and graduates more opportunities for more practical industry experience? What's missing there? Do you think that there's not enough advertisement from employers for opportunities for learning on the job, such as traineeships and internships, or the difficulties if you are from the sector? What are the difficulties to have students place at your establishment to learn on the job?
Mm-hmm. All right. So I want to know if we can also address a question a little higher up by Mr. Ronald Ramlogan in terms of soft skills, right? So he's mentioning that issue is not so much regular updating, but increasing the focus on these skills areas in traditional and TVET training. Notwithstanding, increasing industry and education engagement may help to identify where to place the specific focus or where thinking in these areas have evolved. If we can sort of discuss that a little bit to our represented panel members.
Mhm.
What would you recommend, Ms. Parmanan, in terms of a response to Mr. Ramlogan?
I can respond to it. Yes, that's true. There's
Sure.
not much regular updating because these skills, they don't change as much as technological skills, right? However, yes, increasing the engagement with industry can help them to develop these skills as well, not only the technical ones, but also those emotional skills that were very much mentioned in the results of the study, the communication skills, and other people's skills such as teamwork. Yes, that's true. Thank you. And I'm just going to get back here to the work-based learning. Yeah, I think there needs to be more international cross-learning partnerships with countries. This will help understand the trade. Yeah, very important. And the NTA facilitates the development of the national occupation standards, and the NOS are developed in collaboration with employers, are reviewed every 3-5 years, and they can be used to update curriculum. Yes, of course, very important to the national occupation standards. I just wanted to highlight that this is more specific to technical vocational education and training, while curricula that's not competence-based, it's more difficult to update, as then they might not be based on national occupational standards. So I think one important activity to do there would be perhaps to make a larger diffusion of the national occupational standards. And employability skills are also embedded in the national occupation standards. Okay. Let's move to the next one. The next one is about the education industry dialogue. What mechanisms should enable employers to regularly communicate changing skills needs to education and training institutions? I see that, yes, the national occupational standards are updated every 3 to 5 years. But how could we, what do you see? How could these conversations between employers and educational institutions could be more incentivized? It could happen more frequently. And then there's a response there. Employers and training providers should partner with each other to offer work-based training. That refers to the previous questions too, and register with the NTA to enable certification. Okay. Now, if going back to the ongoing education industry dialogue, what needs to improve this dialogue? Does it happen only when the national occupation standards are updated or not? Okay, that's a very good question. What structural function mechanism exists where employers can provide ongoing feedback on skills needs? And there are some countries in the Caribbean region that are implementing it. One of the mechanisms are sector skills bodies. So sector skills bodies, they are tripartite structures with the participation of employers, but also participation of workers and the government in the form of line ministers and also the ministers of education. And that's a structure that one of the functions of this structure can be identified and anticipating the skills needs. So sector skills bodies are currently being implemented in the Bahamas. They just implemented a Maritime sector skills body. In Jamaica has the Sector Skills Council. And there are more to be implemented in Barbados, one of them in the renewable energy sector. So this is one of the structured way. sometimes this structured way is not the option of the country. And then there are other options, so such as ad hoc committees of experts, and these committees, they meet during a certain periods to discuss a specific occupation. But I believe it is what is done for the update of the national occupation standards. You see here that there is a sector advisory committee for the agriculture at the NTA, made of representatives from the agriculture sector who can identify occupational areas for development or skills need updating. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for sharing this. Let's move to the next one, which is about, next question is about technology adoption and skills. What support would you enable micro and small enterprises to adopt productivity enhanced technologies while building the skills to use them effectively?
I guess, Ilka, just to spur some conversation as well. I know that some governments may have introduced competitive grants or innovation opportunities for businesses to go after in order for them to be able to adopt some technology. So we just want to hear from our audience if they agree or if they are also thinking along those same lines as to whether that is good advice for government to pursue. So just to spar some thinking, so what physical incentives, whether it is competitive grants, innovation vouchers, or along those
Mm-hmm.
lines, if we think that um, this is something that our government or governments or institutions within the sector are encouraged to pursue.
Mm-hmm. I'm seeing Akim also supporting a response. Yes, funding is key. Mm-hmm.
I think based on the results of the study too, information is key as well too, because a lot of the smaller businesses, they were not even aware of what the technologies are and how it can benefit them as well too. So information is also the access to information is also a key one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Let's move to the next one, which is about the STEM talent pipeline. What actions can be taken now to build a stronger pipeline for food scientists, agriculture technicians, environmental scientists, and other emerging occupations?
So I think this could go back to one of the comments we received earlier on from one of the participants in terms of how do we excite young people to enter into the sector. So from a very young age, primary, secondary schools, how do we promote the agriculture career or agri-processing industry? Do we showcase the technologies that's available, get them excited in terms of what can be utilized within the agro-processing sector, and of course offering scholarships for students to pursue this particular avenue, just sharing some thoughts as well, or some of the recommendations coming out of the study as well for discussion.
Yeah, and I'm
Thanks
going
for
to
that,
take
Lauren.
this opportunity to join this with another question, because we also saw the participation of women and STEM occupations. This result of the study is lower than that of men. And how could we also incentivize more women,
Mm-hmm.
to pursue those studies for these careers that are there in STEM: food science, agricultural technicians, environmental scientists, and other emerging occupations in STEM for the agriculture.
Mm-hmm. Elka, just a point raised by Lara introducing the technology, example,
Mhm.
smartphones, drones, etc., can encourage young people to adopt agriculture. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's another one very important here: more experts visiting schools and highlighting how lucrative agri can be,
Mm-hmm.
if this is done correctly and along the lines of mentorship. Very important too. Thank you for the
Mm-hmm.
response. Um, More response. I think there's one more.
Yeah.
Oh, oh, that one is I think it's a question for someone who mentioned, yeah, Ms. Lars. She mentioned there is a sector advisory committee for agriculture, and then there is a question regarding, is it a circular body? I mean, do we see where this advisory committee is providing input for designing curricular training, funding programs, and these new developments are being fed back to employers or the national community in terms of awareness? So perhaps, yeah, I would invite Ms. Lara Maharaj, if she can give more information to respond to this question, specifically about the Sector Advisory Committee for Agriculture at the NTA.
Mm-hmm.
Should we unmute Laura's mic for her to respond? Ms. Maraj?
I City, is that possible? If not, we can move to the other discussion point, Ilka, and we can return. Okay, I'm seeing a
Response, yeah,
response.
yes, yeah,
Nice.
response there. Yeah, the Minister of Labor and Investment have a number of, no. Oh, that's related to uh, access to technology. So it's mentioned here, the Minister of Trade and Investment and Tourism have a number of trade and business development grants, and they're currently conducting a gap analysis where they are assessing the impact of public sector incentives and funding facilities. Okay, thank you very much for this
Yes.
information. I have started to note here, I don't know about you, that, and as Sharon mentioned, um, it's coming on the response,
Mm-hmm.
that sharing information is something that's really needed. Um, there's a lot of knowledge about what's happening, but the knowledge could be better shared. Uh, So let's move to question 7, which is about sector attractiveness.
Ilka,
Right, so
I
Elko,
think
there's
Lara
actually,
Oh, she
answered.
responded.
Yeah.
Okay.
right, so
Thank
Laura
you.
responded
Yeah.
as
Thank you
well.
very much. Yeah.
There's a raised hand.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see if we could get that comment as well.
Yeah, training providers can use the National Occupation Standards. Okay, thank you. Totally more sharing, agree totally more sharing information on this. Okay, thank you very much. And this is one of the objectives of these webinars too, as we said. National Occupation Standards are available on the NTATT website. Would you mind sharing the link to the website? Thank you. So in the meantime, let's then move to question number 7, which is about sector attractiveness and job quality. What would make agro-processing a more attractive career option for skilled and STEM workers, and what can employers themselves change? I think among the responses, technology adoption was mentioned, uh, but beyond, more technology adoption. um,
Also, Ilka, I believe the identification of clearer career progression pathways was also identified by some businesses as also being one.
mhm.
So if we can get some feedback from our participants as to what they, if they agree or on those, the two areas that both Ilka and myself indicated, or if there are other things that we may need to look at.
All right, Ilka, noticing some other questions
Yeah.
and comments in the chat.
Mhm. But there's
hmm
also response. Understand that there's
Yeah.
funding limitation to Trinidad, but there are also international funding that are designed to help local countries, but persons that would like to access don't know how to go about attaining it. I'm hoping you all can help local access these international funding grants, and also probably creating teams to monitor and assisting this small or new business develop and grow. Okay, thank you for the reply. And then there's a question. Has survey ever been done in respect to the mindset of students toward agriculture, its importance to a society and even as a career? Yes, very important question here. I would ask my colleagues from the Hearst, did
Yeah,
they
I would
conduct?
address I'd address this because not within this particular study, but I think it's an important question because students' perception can, directly affect the future of the pipeline. So,
hmm
if young people see agriculture as low tech or low income or limited career progression, then that could help explain why, employers struggle to attract talent in these areas, especially like food science and agriculture technology. But this study didn't particularly looked at that, but I agree, it's a very good question. Because students' attitudes towards agriculture and agri-processing is very important.
Mhm.
I
So it'll
would
be a useful next
also
step.
I would also like to let the participants know that using the findings of the study, we are also through our science education department conducting career fairs, incorporating the technologies in those activities as well too to promote the careers that would have been identified in this study. We are also hoping to map out the career pathways so that we could also use those material to in the career guidance activities as well too. So we are going to use, and I think we already started with the technologies and incorporating it. So we are using the data in the schools to promote the careers.
Okay, thank you. And that also this question also responds to what would make agro-processing a more attractive career. Yeah. I may go a step further. The general perception attitudes toward TVET in general is not necessarily indicative of the potential that this pathway actually offers. Yes, very important. The perception of TVET, and there are several things that can be done to improve the perception of TVET. And one of them depends on data availability. For example, in Senais, large institution on apprenticeship training in Brazil, they did a survey of salaries, and then they showed to youth that some of the salaries they would be much higher if you pursue a career for another occupation at the university level. So by making this comparison, although they were in different fields, students could improve the perception of TVET. Another one was using TVET as a means to move to graduate training, undergraduate, graduate training, that
Ilka, we are not hearing you. Still not hearing you.
public universities, they don't have the means of receiving a lot of students, and some students they cannot afford paying for a university degree. But if you go to TVET, you have the opportunity to enter the job market earlier, and then you can work, and then you can save to pursue further studies at the university level. So this is another option that can be used for improving the perception of TVET. Can we move to the next one? Question number 8, and then after this, we'll have only one final question for you. Number 8 is about women in technical STEM roles. We noted not only in this stage of the agro-processing, but also the other sectors that the participation of women is lower than that of men when it comes to STEM occupations. So what do you think could be done to improve women's participation in technical and STEM occupations? Any suggestions? Any of the colleagues from the Hearst based on other studies want to comment?
I think what is generally practiced to encourage women to pursue certain programs is to set aside um, a certain percentage of, okay, if we want to attract women to pursue the careers, set aside a certain percentage of whether it will be tertiary level programs that you want to seek to attract women in. Also, even when we advertising and promoting particular careers, showcasing women that are in the career in these particular careers as well too may be of value. So whether it would have been some successful women who would have done well in the agro-processing careers, showcasing their success stories, can attract persons to see that they too can
Mm-hmm.
pursue such a career and be successful in it. And generally, setting aside that targeted goal to say if you want a certain percentage of women pursuing, we promote that we want to attract women to the career.
Okay, thank you, Lovan. I don't see any other comments, response. So I think we can move to the next one. That's the last question for you. And it's more about collective commitment. What
Mhm.
is one action your organization can commit over the next 12 months? And what support is needed from others based on the results of the studies, the recommendations? What's one action that you think you could commit? We already mentioned here that information is there, but information seems to not be very well shared. Is there something we could do to improve sharing information beyond these webinars that you have that are specific for each sector?
What about providing mentors for the students to encourage them into the careers? Mentoring some of the and participating in those career guidance activities as well too.
Great.
Yeah, I know from our end, NIHIS is committed to, and Sharon spoke to it in terms of showcasing the careers that are recognized are necessary for the future within the industry as well as those in current demand. So NIHIS is committed to showcasing those careers in our engagement of young people moving forward, and of course promoting the technology within the career. That's NIHIS commitment.
I think we could also commit to, producing and sharing the labor market intelligence on these emerging sectors that we're speaking of, and while creating more opportunities for the employers as well.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone from the audience wants to add something? It could be something you are already committed to.
Well, before we close up the Q&A, if there would have been any questions we may not have addressed, this is the opportunity for you to reventilate.
I think I think Mr. Logan also had a question
Question, yeah. What about the?
regarding the previous question.
Okay.
what about targeted scholarships or paid internship opportunities for women?
Mhm. That's one of
Okay.
the
Yeah.
tactics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Mm,
then there's a further
mhm, mhm,
comment. We can support sensitization and information sharing among our
mhm.
members with support from NTA, NAHIS, and other state bodies, of course. Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm seeing a question from
Um,
Mr. Phillips. Did the assessment show why women are staying away from the field?
yes. Um, we actually asked the survey was with employers, and it doesn't really show the reason why they're staying away from
Yeah,
the
we didn't
field.
identify any specific reasons of
Hmm.
why they're less
Mhm.
represented in technical or STEM roles.
I see. Hmm.
And so we should be careful not to assume the reasons why
Mhm.
they're not engaging.
Hmm.
We could also look at too in terms of committing to more collaboration and more partnership among the stakeholders as well to actually get some action items and some solutions implemented.
All right.
Yeah, I
So if
think,
there,
yeah.
yeah, are no more questions in the chat, thank you so
Mhm.
much, Ms. Webster and team, for facilitating. So it's clear that one of the key takeaways, of course, is that this particular industry has significant potential for growth. And with the advancement of our research studies, we can definitely see that being activated. So again, thank you for being a part of today's webinar. But before you go, we encourage you to visit the link in the chat. It's an opportunity for us to obtain necessary feedback from today's session. It is very short, approximately 30 seconds. And of course, we value your feedback. So if you can quickly respond, we would appreciate it. And you're also encouraged to continue following both NIHIST and ILO for all of the upcoming sessions in this series. Next up, aviation. So same day, same time, Thursdays at 10 a.m., all the way up until the 17th of September. Right, so we should have a flyer before you so you can take the information. And team members, if you could also include in the chat a direct link for the registration as well. Right, so as persons on the call, you are going to get reminders via Zoom to join the next session. But this link that we're going to share in the chat will be opportunity to disseminate to your network as well. So they will also have the opportunity to be a part of the ongoing series. Right, so we'll give you sufficient time to complete the feedback form. Right, so to ensure that the form itself is activated, please make a selection. You will see two questions, and once that is selected, you will be able to advance to the other questions. If you're having any difficulties, do let us know. All right, so responses are coming in. Excellent, Mr. Clark, but you can share the link to any persons within your network who you believe may be interested in the upcoming sessions. That's the direct link. Yes. So thank you so much to all on the call this morning. Yes. Thanks, IT. Thanks to our chair and our representatives from NIHIST and the ILO for taking time out of their schedule to be with us this morning. And we wish you all a productive day ahead. Take
Thank
care
you.
and see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hector.
Welcome, Chair.